She kissed a stranger just to make her ex jealous, but she never expected him to kiss her back. And she definitely didn't expect him to be Liam Sinclair, the ruthless billionaire who never loses. Now caught in a dangerous game of passion and deception, will she survive or fall completely? The scent of freshly baked bread and sizzling steak filled the air, but to Emma Carter it smelled like misery. The restaurant where she worked, La Vie en Rose, a place of luxury and candlelit romance, was a stark contrast to her own life. While guests dined on $200 steaks and aged wine, Emma counted every penny, barely scraping by on her waitress salary. But tonight was worse than usual. Tonight, she had to serve Ryan, her ex-boyfriend, the man who had once whispered love into her ears, only to shatter her heart into a million irreparable pieces. As she balanced a tray of drinks in her hands, her eyes flickered toward the table in the far corner. There he was, smiling, laughing, holding another woman's hand like she was the only one who mattered. Emma felt her stomach twist. That used to be me. She remembered the late-night walks they had shared, the way he had held her so close during thunderstorms, telling her he'd never let her go. But he had. He had let her go the moment a richer, shinier option came along. The woman beside Ryan was a rich heiress, the kind of woman Emma could never compete with. Dressed in a velvet red gown dripping in diamonds, exuding wealth and confidence, she leaned into Ryan's touch effortlessly, as if she had always belonged there. And then it happened. Ryan's gaze lifted, meeting Emma's. His lips curled into a smirk, one she had once found charming but now only saw as cruel. "Oh, wow, Emma," he said loud enough for his entire table to hear. "Still working here? I thought you'd have moved on by now." Laughter erupted around him. Emma's face burned. She clenched her fists, forcing a polite smile. "Some of us actually work for a living, Ryan." But he wasn't done. He leaned back in his chair, throwing his arm lazily over the backrest. "You know, I always told you that you were too ambitious for your own good. Wanting love, dreaming about a future. But let's be real. A girl like you. You were never meant for a man like me." Emma's chest tightened. "You were never meant for a man like me." The words sliced through her heart, reopening wounds she thought had started to heal. How could she still let him affect her like this? How could she let him win? Her hands trembled as she turned to walk away, but then she saw it. Ryan's new girlfriend giggling into his ear, her gaze flickering toward Emma with pity. That was it. Emma's pulse roared in her ears. She refused to let Ryan have the last word. She refused to be the heartbroken ex. And then, before she could stop herself, she spun around and did the craziest thing she had ever done in her life. The kiss that changed everything. Her eyes darted around the room searching. She needed someone. Anyone. And then she saw him. Seated at a secluded table nursing a glass of whiskey was a man unlike any she had ever seen before. Tall, dark hair, a chiseled jawline that looked like it belonged in a movie. He had the aura of danger and power, yet there was something hauntingly calm about him. The air around him felt thick with mystery, as if he wasn't just another wealthy patron but something more. Emma had no time to hesitate. She marched toward him, heart pounding, legs unsteady. He barely had time to react when she grabbed his face, leaned in, and kissed him. Gasps echoed around the restaurant. Her lips pressed against his, warm, firm, intoxicating. For a moment he didn't move. But then, he did. Instead of pulling away, his strong hands slid around her waist, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened. The world blurred. Emma forgot everything. Ryan, her anger, the restaurant, even her own name. All she knew was that this stranger's lips were claiming hers with a slow, deliberate passion that sent electricity crackling through her veins. She had expected him to push her away, to be confused, to ask her what the hell she was doing, but instead, he kissed her back. It wasn't just a kiss, it was a statement. His fingers curled into her waist, his grip possessive yet teasing, his lips moving over hers with a confidence that sent her pulse racing. It was a kiss that said, "Is this what you wanted? Then let me give you more." Emma's breath hitched. Who the hell was this man? Finally she pulled back, her lungs screaming for air. Silence. The entire restaurant was staring. Ryan's jaw was clenched so tight she thought it might break. His new girlfriend looked stunned, as if she had just witnessed something forbidden. And then Emma made her final move. She turned back to the stranger, this dangerously handsome mystery man, and smiled. "Thanks for playing along," she whispered breathlessly. She barely noticed the smirk that ghosted his lips, the way his dark eyes gleamed with amusement and intrigue. And with that, Emma walked away, victorious. The stranger's reaction. Liam Sinclair. As Emma disappeared back into the crowd, Liam Sinclair sat completely still, his lips still tingling from the kiss. It had been years since someone had caught him off guard like that. Who the hell was that woman? He watched her retreat, her wild, impulsive fire still burning in his mind. She had walked into his life like a storm, kissed him without permission, and then left as if she owned the night. Liam wasn't the kind of man who let anything happen to him without his control. And yet, she had just rewritten the rules. He took a slow sip of whiskey, eyes narrowing. Emma Carter. She didn't know it yet, but she had just caught the attention of the most powerful man in the room. And Liam Sinclair never let go of something he wanted. Liam Sinclair had always been a man of control. He controlled his business empire, his emotions, and, most importantly, who got close to him. Yet, in the span of a single minute, a wild, infuriating, and breathtaking woman had barged into his life, stolen a kiss that had set his entire body on fire, and then walked away like it meant nothing. Nothing. His fingers tapped slowly against the rim of his whiskey glass, eyes tracking her movements across the restaurant. She was back to work, weaving between tables, her head held high, pretending as if she hadn't just kissed the richest man in the room like he was hers to take. Liam smirked, running his tongue across his lips. Emma Carter. The way she kissed him. It hadn't just been impulsive, it had been desperate, raw, full of unspoken pain and defiance. But what intrigued him most? The way she didn't recognize him. Women chased Liam Sinclair for his power, his billions, his reputation. Yet, Emma had looked at him without a trace of recognition, using him for her own purpose before disappearing into the crowd like a whisper of smoke. No one had ever dared to treat him like that. And Liam didn't let go of things that intrigued him. Emma's battle with her own heart. Emma could still feel the ghost of the kiss on her lips. No matter how hard she tried to focus on her job, on balancing trays, refilling drinks, taking orders, her mind was stuck on the stranger's touch, the warmth of his hands, the way his lips moved against hers with an intensity that stole her breath. The moment his grip on her waist had tightened possessively, sending shivers down her spine. Who was he? And more importantly, why had he kissed her back? She had expected him to push her away in shock, maybe even demand an explanation. Instead, he had deepened the kiss, tilting his head like he had every intention of ruining her completely. A reckless thrill shot through her veins, but she forced herself to shake it off. Numbers she wasn't going to fixate on some random stranger just because he kissed better than any man she had ever met. She had bigger problems, like making it through the night without collapsing from the emotional whirlwind Ryan had put her through. But just as she was about to turn away from the past, she felt a shift in the air. A presence, a gaze so intense that it sent goosebumps across her skin. Slowly, cautiously, she turned her head. And there he was, seated in the same secluded booth, watching her like a predator watches its prey. A dangerous game begins. Emma's breath caught in her throat. Why is he still here? Most customers ate, paid, and left, but he hadn't moved, his dark, unreadable gaze locked onto her like he was studying her, memorizing every detail. Emma swallowed hard and quickly turned away. But within seconds, her manager, a stout, nervous man named Greg, was rushing toward her. "Table 11 is requesting you." Her stomach dropped. Table 11. Him. Emma forced herself to breathe. Maybe it wasn't about the kiss. Maybe he just wanted a refill. Except when she arrived at his table, his glass was full. And he wasn't holding a menu. He was waiting for her. A conversation charged with electricity. She lifted her chin, pretending like she wasn't unraveling under his intense stare. "Can I help you, sir?" Her voice came out cool, professional, as if she hadn't just tasted his lips 20 minutes ago. Liam tilted his head, assessing her like she was an unsolved puzzle. "You kiss all your customers," he mused. "Or am I just special?" Emma's pulse spiked. The audacity. She forced a tight-lipped smile. "It was a mistake. You just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time." His lips curled into an almost smirk, amusement flashing in his sharp, midnight blue eyes. "Wrong place," he echoed. "That's an interesting way to describe a kiss like that." Emma's cheeks burned hot. This man, whoever he was dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with physical harm. He was dangerous because he saw through her, because his voice, his presence, his entire existence felt like temptation wrapped in a tailored suit. Emma refused to play this game. "If you don't need anything, sir, I have other tables to attend to." She turned on her heel, ready to escape, but his voice stopped her in her tracks. "Emma." She froze. "He knows my name?" Her heart pounded like a war drum. Slowly she turned back. His eyes burned into hers, dark with something she couldn't name. "You used me," he said, voice low, smooth, dangerous in its control. Emma's throat dried. "And," she managed. His smirk slowly widened. "I let you." Her knees almost buckled. What kind of man said something like that? What kind of man kissed a stranger and then made it feel like she was the one who had been claimed? She swallowed hard, forcing steel into her voice. "Well, congratulations. You survived." For a long moment, he didn't say anything, just looked at her. Then, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek black business card. "Dinner. Tomorrow, 7 sharp." He slid the card across the table. "Wear something that doesn't smell like kitchen grease." Emma gaped at him. "Excuse me?" Liam's gaze flickered down to her lips for just a fraction of a second before locking onto her eyes again. "You didn't think you could just kiss me and walk away, did you?" She sucked in a sharp breath. This was bad. This was really, really bad. Because as much as she wanted to hate his arrogance, his confidence, his ability to make her pulse skyrocket with just a few words, part of her, the part that was still feeling the fire from his kiss, wanted to see what would happen if she said yes. Emma's dilemma, a battle between pride and temptation. Emma stared at the sleek black business card as if it were a ticking time bomb. Liam Sinclair. His name alone sent a shiver down her spine. She didn't need to Google him. His dangerously confident aura, expensive suit, and undeniable presence told her everything. He was powerful, rich, untouchable. So why the hell had he invited her to dinner? Her fingers gripped the card tightly. This was a mistake. She should tear it up, throw it away, forget he ever existed. But instead, she found herself standing outside the restaurant where he had asked her to meet him. Her brain screamed at her to walk away, but her heart pounded with an unfamiliar excitement. What was she doing? Emma wasn't a fool. She knew men like Liam Sinclair didn't just take interest in girls like her. And yet, her lips still tingled from their kiss. She took a deep breath, steeled her nerves, and stepped inside. A date or a game? The night that changed everything. The restaurant was nothing like the one she worked at. It was exclusive, dripping in luxury, dimly lit with chandeliers that sparkled like 1,000 fallen stars. And in the very center of it all, Liam Sinclair sat waiting for her, effortlessly confident, unbothered, looking at her like he had been expecting her all along. Emma swallowed hard. How did he do that? How did he command attention without even trying? "You came," he mused, amusement flickering in his midnight blue eyes. Emma lifted her chin, refusing to be intimidated. "I haven't decided if I'm staying yet." Liam smirked. "Sit." Her pride told her to walk away. Her curiosity told her to stay. Curiosity won. She lowered herself into the chair across from him, trying to ignore the way his intense gaze made her feel exposed, like he could see past every layer she hid behind. The chemistry that couldn't be denied. The waiter arrived, pouring deep red wine into crystal glasses. Liam leaned back, fingers tracing the rim of his glass. "So, tell me, Emma, do you make a habit of kissing strangers?" Her grip on the napkin tightened. "Do you make a habit of inviting them to dinner?" A slow, wicked smile curved his lips. "Only when they taste as good as you." Emma's breath hitched. Damn him. The air between them thickened, charged with something she couldn't name. This wasn't a normal conversation, this was a game, a dance, a dangerous push and pull. And somehow Liam was winning. Emma cleared her throat, desperate to break the tension. "Look, if this is about what happened last night, let's just agree to forget it ever happened." Liam's expression darkened. "Is that what you want?" She hesitated. She should say yes. She should walk away and never look back. But when she looked into his eyes, something deep inside her whispered that she wasn't ready to let go just yet. "I don't know what I want," she admitted softly. For a brief second, something flickered in Liam's gaze, something raw, unreadable. Then, in a move that sent her pulse skyrocketing, he reached across the table and gently traced his fingers over the back of her hand. The touch was soft, barely there, but it sent a wildfire through her veins. "I know what I want," he murmured. Emma's pulse roared in her ears. This was bad. Very, very bad. But when Liam's fingers ghosted over her back, sending shivers down her spine, it didn't feel like acting at all. Dancing with the devil, the music changed. A slow, sensual melody filled the air. Liam turned to her, his gaze intense. "Dance with me." Emma hesitated. But he was already leading her to the dance floor, his hands settling on her waist with ease. Every touch, every movement felt like a slow burn. The world blurred around them. It was just them, two people wrapped in an illusion that felt too damn real. Liam's voice was low, intimate. "You're trembling," Emma swallowed. "I don't do this kind of thing every day." His grip tightened slightly. "You're doing better than you think." She exhaled shakily, allowing herself to relax into his hold just a little, and that was when she made her mistake. She looked up and met his eyes. A slow, heated pull gripped her entire body. For a moment, she forgot where she was, forgot that this was fake, because in that moment, it felt like Liam Sinclair wanted nothing more than to kiss her, senseless. A night that ends with a dangerous invitation. By the time the gala ended, Emma was exhausted from pretending not to be affected. The car ride home was silent, but the air between them buzzed with unspoken tension. As they reached her apartment, Liam stepped out, rounding the car to open the door for her. Emma hesitated. "You didn't have to do that," Liam smirked. "What kind of man would I be if I let my date open her own door?" Her heart did a stupid little flip. God, why was he like this? She stepped onto the sidewalk, expecting him to say goodnight and leave. But Liam took a step closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. For a long moment, he just studied her. And then, softly, teasingly, he traced a single finger under her chin, tilting her face up. Her breath caught. "Tomorrow," he murmured, his voice thick with promise. "Wear red." And before she could respond, before she could process the fire raging in her chest, Liam Sinclair turned, stepped into his car, and disappeared into the night. Leaving Emma standing there, heart racing, lips tingling with the ghost of a kiss that never happened. And maybe, just maybe, that was the most dangerous thing of all. Emma had spent the entire night trying to forget how Liam Sinclair made her feel, trying to ignore the way his voice lingered in her head like a whispered promise, trying to pretend that her skin wasn't still tingling from his touch, trying and failing to convince herself that this was just a business deal. But as she walked into La Vie en Rose the next evening for her shift, her heart was heavy with something else. Confusion, longing, guilt. And then she saw him. Not Liam, Ryan. Her breath stopped. Her pulse staggered. There he was, sitting at a table near the back, watching her. The same man who had once promised her the world, only to throw her away like she was nothing. The same man who had said she was too ordinary, too poor, too beneath him. And yet, here he was, waiting for her. The man who once broke. Her Emma's legs felt heavy as she walked over, clutching her notepad like it was a shield. Ryan's smirk was exactly how she remembered it. Cocky, self-assured, the smirk of a man who believed he was still in control. "Hey, Em," he drawled, leaning back. "You look good." Her stomach twisted. Em. He used to call her that when they were in love. She forced her expression into blank professionalism. "Are you ordering something, or did you just come here to waste my time?" Ryan chuckled. "Same fire as always, but don't act like you're not happy to see me." Emma clenched her jaw. Happy? She was many things right now, but happy sure as hell wasn't one of them. "What do you want, Ryan?" she asked flatly. His smirk widened. "Come on, Em. Can't an ex just drop by to say hi?" She didn't buy it. Not for a second. Ryan never did anything without a reason. And then he leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I saw you last night." Emma stiffened. Ryan's smirk turned sharper, eyes glinting with something dangerous. "You and that rich guy. Liam Sinclair." Her breath hitched. Of course he would have seen. The whole damn city had probably seen. The way Liam had held her, touched her, kissed her temple like she belonged to him. Emma refused to let him see her nerves. "So what?" she said, crossing her arms. "Jealous?" Ryan chuckled, but there was a hint of something bitter underneath. "Just wondering if you finally decided to stop playing hard to get and go for a man who could actually afford you." Emma flinched, but before she could snap at him, Ryan tilted his head, watching her like he could see straight into her soul. "Or," he mused, "is this something else? Because I gotta say, Em, he doesn't look like the type to settle down. You sure you're not just a game to him?" The words sank into her skin like poison. Wasn't that the same thought that had been haunting her? Wasn't that the very thing she feared the most? She swallowed, looking away. This is just a deal. But then, why did it feel like something more? Liam's arrival. A storm brewing. Before Ryan could say anything else, the air around them changed. Emma felt it before she saw him. A presence. Commanding. Powerful. Unmistakably Liam. She turned just as he entered the restaurant, dressed in a dark charcoal suit, his sharp gaze locked onto her and Ryan like a predator stalking its prey. Her breath hitched. Liam didn't just walk into a room, he owned it. His eyes flicked toward Ryan, and in an instant his expression shifted. Cold, calculated, deadly. And then he smiled. A slow, dangerous smile that sent a shiver down Emma's spine. Without breaking stride, he closed the distance between them. And just like that, he pulled Emma into his arms. Her body went rigid as Liam's hand splayed across her lower back, his other hand tilting her chin up. Then, with deliberate slowness, he leaned down and brushed his lips against her forehead. A territorial gesture, a silent claim. Ryan's jaw clenched. Emma's breath caught in her throat. "Emma?" Liam murmured, his voice smooth as silk. "Is everything all right?" Emma had no idea how to respond. But Ryan? Ryan's smugness was gone. He was seething. Liam turned his attention to him, still holding Emma so close she could feel his heartbeat against her own. "And you must be the ex," Liam mused. his tone so casually threatening it sent a thrill down her spine. Ryan scoffed. "And you must be the new toy." Emma flinched. Damn him. But before she could react, Liam's grip tightened. He chuckled, but it was a sound so void of humour that it sent an icy chill through the air. "Oh no," Liam said smoothly. "I don't play with things I plan to keep." Emma's stomach flipped, Ryan's face darkened. The tension was suffocating. And then Liam did something that completely shattered her world. He turned back to her, cupped her cheek so gently it almost hurt. And then he kissed her, right there, in front of Ryan, in front of the whole damn restaurant. A kiss that changed everything. Emma wasn't ready. Not for the way his lips claimed hers without hesitation, not for the way his fingers tangled into her hair, holding her like he was never letting go, not for the way her body completely melted into him, betraying every single alarm in her head. Liam kissed her like she was something precious, something worth protecting, keeping, owning. When he pulled away, Emma's knees felt weak. Ryan looked like he wanted to punch something. Liam? He just smirked. "Now," he said, brushing his thumb across Emma's lower lip. "I think you were about to leave, weren't you?" Ryan's nostrils flared, but for once, he had nothing to say. With one last glare, he turned and stormed out. Emma was still trying to catch her breath, and then Liam whispered against her ear, "Don't ever let a man like that make you doubt your worth." Her heart slammed against her ribs, because in that moment, for the first time in a long time, she felt wanted, not like a possession, not like a burden, just wanted. And that was far more dangerous than anything Liam Sinclair could ever do to her. A storm brewing inside her. Emma couldn't breathe. Her heart was racing too fast, her skin burning from the ghost of Liam's lips still lingering on hers. The way he had kissed her, claiming her in front of Ryan, in front of the entire restaurant, in front of the world. It wasn't just an act. It was something else, something dangerous. Because for the first time, Emma wasn't sure if she was playing the role of Liam Sinclair's fake girlfriend, or if she was already becoming something more. And that thought terrified her. Liam's gentle command. Outside the restaurant, Liam's car was already waiting. He guided her toward it, his strong hand pressing against the small of her back. The warmth of his touch seeped through her dress, making her shiver. "Liam," she started, but he was already opening the door for her. "Get in, Emma," he said smoothly. Not a request, a command. For once, she didn't fight it. The ride that changed everything. The car was silent as it pulled onto the city streets. Emma sat stiffly, her hands clenched into fists on her lap, staring straight ahead. Liam, on the other hand, was too damn calm, like he hadn't just shattered her entire world with a single kiss. Like he hadn't just woken up every dormant feeling inside her. Desire, fear, hope. Finally, she turned to him. "What the hell was that?" she whispered. Liam glanced at her, completely unbothered. "You'll have to be more specific." Emma's nails dug into her palms. "The kiss," she snapped. "The way you—" She cut herself off, exhaling sharply. "You didn't have to do that, Liam." His jaw tensed slightly. "Yes, I did." Emma's breath hitched. "Why?" His gaze flickered toward her. And for a split second she saw something raw, something unguarded in his eyes. But just as quickly it was gone. "Because he doesn't get to make you feel small," Liam murmured, his voice softer than before. Emma's chest tightened, because for a moment it felt like he actually cared. And that was dangerous. A moment too close. The car slowed as they reached her apartment. Liam turned toward her, and before she could even think, his fingers were gently tilting her chin up. "Tell me something, Emma." His voice was quiet, but it sent shivers down her spine. She swallowed. "What?" His thumb brushed lightly against her jawline. Too soft, too intimate. "Did you hate it?" he murmured. "The kiss." Her lungs locked up. Did she? She should have. She should have been furious. But instead, her lips still ached for him. She should lie, should tell him it meant nothing. But when she looked into his dark, unreadable eyes, her mouth went dry. Liam leaned in, his lips hovering dangerously close to hers again. "Tell me," he whispered. Emma's entire body betrayed her. She couldn't move, she couldn't breathe, she wanted him too much. And then, a cruel voice shattered the moment. "You really think he cares about you, don't you?" A betrayal that cut too deep. Emma's entire body went rigid. Her blood ran cold. Ryan's voice. He was standing outside the car. Liam sighed, pulling back slightly, but his expression was no longer soft. It was ice cold. Emma turned, her heart pounding, to see Ryan leaning against a lamppost, his arms crossed, a smug smirk on his lips. She should ignore him, should roll up the window and pretend he didn't exist. But then, he said something that made her entire world come crashing down. "You actually think a man like him could love a girl like you?" Ryan sneered. Emma stiffened. Ryan's smirk grew sharper. He knew he had her now. "You don't get it, do you?" He chuckled darkly, shaking his head. "You're just another one of his bets?" Emma's stomach twisted violently. Ryan stepped closer. "Liam Sinclair, the man who never dates, the man who sees love as a joke. Come on, Emma. You don't actually believe this is real, do you?" Her throat closed up. No, this was just a deal. She knew that. She agreed to it. So why did hearing it out loud feel like someone had stabbed her in the heart? Liam's voice was suddenly lethal. "That's enough." Ryan ignored him, his eyes locked onto Emma's. "Don't be stupid, Em. The rich don't fall in love with girls like you. You're just entertainment." A game Emma's entire body trembled. Liam wouldn't. He wouldn't do that to her. Would he? Would he? She turned to Liam, her chest aching with something she couldn't name. "Tell me it's not true," she whispered. For the first time, Liam looked hesitant. And that hesitation? It destroyed her. Emma felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath her feet. Tears burned the back of her throat. She had been so stupid. So damn stupid. How could she have let herself believe, even for a second, that Liam Sinclair was different? She didn't wait for an answer. Didn't wait to hear whatever excuse Liam would come up with, because excuses wouldn't fix the damage. Emma shoved open the door, stepped out into the cold night, and walked away. Liam called her name, but she didn't stop. She couldn't, because if she turned back now, she might not survive this heartbreak. Liam's silent destruction. Liam sat in the car, fists clenched, jaw tight, watching the woman who had somehow broken through his walls walk away. His mind screamed at him to go after her, to fix this, to tell her that Ryan was a liar, that this wasn't just a game to him anymore, but he had waited too long. And now he wasn't sure if he'd ever get the chance to make her believe it. Liam Sinclair was not a man who lost. He had built empires, conquered markets, and destroyed anyone who dared to stand in his way. And yet, for the first time in his life, he was standing in the middle of his penthouse, staring at the city skyline, feeling utterly powerless. Emma was gone, and it was his fault. The memory of her tear-streaked face, her trembling voice as she asked him to deny Ryan's words. It haunted him, because he had hesitated, and that hesitation had cost him the only woman who had ever mattered. He had never been the kind of man to beg, never been the kind of man to chase, but for Emma, he would burn down the entire world to get her back. Emma's pain, and the battle in her heart. Emma sat curled up on her tiny couch, arms wrapped around herself as she tried to keep from falling apart. She hadn't eaten, hadn't slept, because every time she closed her eyes, all she saw was him, Liam Sinclair, the man she had stupidly let into her heart, the man who had kissed her like she was his entire world, only to leave her feeling like she was nothing. Ryan's words echoed in her mind. "You're just a game to him. Rich men don't fall for girls like you." And worst of all, Liam hadn't denied it. Her heart twisted painfully. But despite everything, despite all the reasons she should hate him, there was still one undeniable truth. She loved him. And that realization, it broke her. Liam's plan, proving his love. Liam had never been the kind of man who made romantic gestures. But this wasn't about romance anymore. This was about getting Emma back. And he knew exactly how to do it. The restaurant that started it all. Emma's shift at La Vie en Rose was coming to an end. She had thrown herself into work, desperate for distraction, but it wasn't working. Every sound, every scent reminded her of him. She let out a tired sigh and untied her apron, ready to leave. But then she heard whispers, gasps. And when she turned toward the entrance, her heart nearly stopped. Liam Sinclair was standing in the middle of the restaurant, holding a bouquet of crimson roses. And he wasn't alone. Behind him, the entire restaurant had been transformed. The lights dimmed, candles flickered on every table, and in the center of the room a single table was set for two. Her chest tightened. Because this wasn't just any table. It was the exact spot where she had kissed him that first night. She swallowed hard, her hands shaking. "Liam, what are you doing?" He stepped closer, his eyes holding a storm of emotions she couldn't decipher. "I'm winning you back." Her breath caught. "This is crazy," she whispered. Liam smirked, but there was no arrogance in it, only raw, desperate sincerity. "You kissed me in this restaurant," he said, his voice deep and steady. "And you walked away like it meant nothing." Emma's pulse raced. "You didn't give me a choice," she murmured. Liam's jaw tensed. "I'm giving you one now." He gestured toward the table. "One dinner, Emma, just us. No deals, no contracts, no pretending." Her heart pounded violently. "Why?" she whispered. Liam exhaled slowly. And then he gave her the truth. A billionaire's confession. "Because you're not a game to me." Emma's breath shattered. Liam took a step closer, his voice thick with emotion. "You never were. Not for a second." She shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. "But you—" "I was scared," he admitted. "You have no idea what you do to me, Emma. I've spent my entire life keeping people at a distance, never letting anyone get close enough to hurt me." His throat bobbed. "And then you kissed me. And I swear to God, I haven't been able to think about anything else since." Emma's heart ached. "Liam." "I screwed up," he continued. "I should have told you how I felt. I should have fought for you before you walked away." His eyes darkened, a flicker of pain surfacing. "But I won't make that mistake again." Silence. A heavy, overwhelming silence filled with all the words they had never said. And then Liam stepped even closer, so close she could feel his warmth, smell the intoxicating scent of him. "I love you, Emma." Her entire world stopped. "I love the way you never let anyone walk over you. I love the way you challenge me, the way you look at the world like you'll never let it break you." His fingers brushed gently against her cheek. "And I love the way you make me feel like I can be more than just a billionaire with too much power and no heart." Emma's tears finally spilled over. Because this was real. Liam Sinclair was not a man who begged, not a man who let anyone see his weakness. But here he was, bare, vulnerable, offering her everything. And in that moment, Emma knew. She could spend her life running, or she could take a chance on love. Her lips trembled. "Liam," his gaze searched hers. "Tell me you don't love me and I'll walk away." She sucked in a breath. And then she shattered completely. "Damn it, Liam," she choked out, grabbing his face and pulling him into a kiss. The second their lips met, he groaned, wrapping his arms around her, holding her so tightly it felt like he would never let go. The restaurant erupted in applause, but Emma didn't hear it. All she could feel was Liam, his lips, his warmth, his love. The man she had fought so hard to resist had just become the only man she would ever want. A love that was never supposed to happen. Emma never thought she would be here. Wrapped in Liam Sinclair's arms, feeling his steady heartbeat against her own. For weeks she had fought him. Fought the feelings, the attraction, the emotions that threatened to consume her. But now? Now she wasn't running. Now she was standing in the middle of a candlelit restaurant, kissing the man who had turned her world upside down. And the craziest part? She didn't want to stop. Liam kissed her like she was his oxygen, like she was the only thing that mattered in his entire empire. And when he finally pulled away, resting his forehead against hers, his voice was a raw whisper. "Emma, you have no idea how long I've wanted to do that." Her heart swelled. "You did it plenty of times before," she teased breathlessly. Liam chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Not like this." Emma swallowed hard, because she knew what he meant. Not with love, not with forever. And suddenly, it was all too much. This man, the billionaire who had once been so untouchable, so impossible to read, was now giving her everything. Her throat tightened, emotions threatening to overwhelm her. "Liam, she hesitated. "I don't want to be a game. I don't want to be a contract or an arrangement." His expression turned dead serious. "You're not," he said, no hesitation in his voice. "You never were. And if I ever made you feel that way, then I'm the biggest idiot alive." Emma exhaled shakily. "You're not an idiot," she murmured. Liam smirked, his fingers grazing down her arm, sending shivers through her. "No?" He tilted his head. "Because I must be if it took me this long to realize that I can't live without you." Her chest ached in the best way possible. She stared at him, at the man who had once terrified her with his intensity, only to make her fall in love with the way he saw her. Not as a waitress, not as a charity case, but as his equal, his partner, his love. And Emma knew. She was done fighting this. The beginning of forever. That night, Liam didn't take her home. Instead, he brought her to his penthouse. And for the first time, it didn't feel intimidating or cold. It felt like home. He handed her a glass of wine, leading her to the massive floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the glowing city below. She stared at the skyline, feeling a strange sense of peace. "This is where you live," she whispered. Liam leaned against the glass, his intense gaze never leaving her. "This is where I exist." His lips curled slightly. "But it hasn't felt like home in a long time." Emma turned to him, her heart pounding at the meaning behind his words. She swallowed. "And now?" Liam's smirk softened, turning into something real, something devastatingly sincere. "Now? It's wherever you are." Emma's breath shook. She should have been used to his words by now. The way he said things that made her entire world shift beneath her feet. But no. This man always knew how to leave her breathless. Before she could stop herself, she reached for him, her fingers grasping his jacket. "I think I love you, Liam Sinclair," she whispered. His entire body froze. And then, he was kissing her again. This time there was no hesitation, no fear, only fire, devotion, love. When he pulled back, his forehead pressed against hers, his voice rough and filled with emotion. "You think?" His lips brushed against hers. "Emma, I know I love you." Her chest tightened with something too big to contain. "I love you," she whispered. Fully. Completely. And just like that, every wall she had ever built came crashing down. 1 year later, a love that defied the odds. The headlines had exploded when the world found out that Liam Sinclair, the billionaire playboy, had fallen madly in love with a waitress. But Emma, she didn't care, because she was happy. She had quit her job at the restaurant and finally pursued her dream of opening her own small bistro. And Liam, he had been her biggest supporter, her greatest champion, the man who pushed her to believe in herself. Tonight she stood in the middle of her newly opened restaurant, watching the people fill the tables, laughter and warmth surrounding her. And in the centre of it all, Liam sat at a table, watching her like she was still the most fascinating thing in the room. Her heart skipped a beat. Even after a year, he still looked at her like that. She made her way toward him, sliding into the seat beside him. Liam immediately wrapped an arm around her, pulling her against his side. She chuckled. You know, people will start talking if you keep looking at me like that. Liam smirked. Let them. Emma rolled her eyes, but she couldn't stop smiling. And then, Liam reached into his pocket. Her breath hitched, because in his palm was a ring. Her eyes widened. Liam. He took her hand, his expression raw, filled with nothing but love. I don't want a single day without you, he murmured. So what do you say, Emma Carter? Her entire body shook with happiness. I say... She leaned in, brushing her lips against his. Yes. And as Liam kissed her, slow, deep, like he was sealing a promise, they both knew. This wasn't just a happily ever after. It was the beginning of forever.